Hello, viewers. Welcome to today's Bible study session. What do you do when your knowledge gets challenged by a power that's too mighty to counter? Join us in our Bible study today as we journey through the book of John, chapter 9, where we will be witnessing Jesus heal a man that had been born blind. At the same time, we will also see Jesus outlining the significance of being blind to worldly perspectives so as to create room for God's transformation. As we drew to the end of the former chapter, we saw the Jews intended to stone Jesus, but he miraculously escaped without being harmed. Now, in this chapter, Jesus heals a man that had been blind from birth, which stirs reactions from those who knew him and also intensifies the Pharisees' hostility towards him. Conversely, the man that he heals, as we will see, acknowledges the fact that such a miracle can only arise from God and believes in Jesus contrary to Pharisees' desires and their perspectives. When Jesus was healing this man, he answered the disciples and said that the blindness had nothing to do with the sins of the man's parents nor his sins. Jesus outlines that this particular instance was designated for manifestation of the power of God or the power of God through Jesus Christ. It is worthy adding that Jesus did not cease from healing the man, although he was well aware that his miracles were intensifying anger amongst the Pharisees. In verses 4, he outlines that he must do the work of him that sent him while he was on earth, while it is still day. What comes out clearly here is the fact that Jesus was focused on his work of redeeming mankind from the flaws of the world, even though he encountered opposition. The Pharisees outlined that Jesus was not of God or from God, or more simplified, that his doctrine wasn't God's doctrine. In the scriptures that follow, we encounter the man that was healed giving credit to Jesus and correlating him with godliness when the Pharisees depicted that Jesus was a sinner. In verses 26 through to 32, the man highlights the following while answering the Jews. Verse 26 says, Then said they to him, or then said they to him again, What did he to thee? How opened he thine eyes? He answered them, I have told you already, and you did not hear. Wherefore would you hear it again? Will you also be his disciples? Then they reviled him and said, Thou art his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples. We know that God spake unto Moses. As for this fellow, we know not from whence he is. The man answered and said unto them, Why hearing is a marvelous thing, that you know not from whence he is, and yet he has opened mine eyes. Now we know that God heareth not sinners, but if a man be a worshipper of God, and doeth his will, him he heareth. Since the world began, was it not heard that any man opened the eyes of one that was born blind? If this man were not of God, he could do nothing. Typically, this is the work of God as this man implies, or what simply this man implies is that this is the work of God, or Jesus was indeed from God. Remember that the ministry of Jesus was accompanied by teachings and miracles whose significance was glorifying God and attesting the power of Jesus as the Son of God. In this instance, the man presented sufficient evidence that, as a matter of point, Jesus was from God, for there had been no such miracles experienced since the foundations. This evidence was a great challenge to the knowledge and the mindset of Jews or the Pharisees which made them to cast a man from amongst themselves. In the latter verses, we see an interaction between the man and Jesus, where the man acknowledges Jesus, believes in him as the Son of God, and worships him. It is important to note from this scripture, or from this man's response to Jesus, that this miraculous healing played part in man's response and belief in Jesus. What we can deduce from this is that the proper response towards God's miracles and blessings is to acknowledge his work, which, as stipulated in John chapter 6, verse 29, is to believe in Jesus Christ as a Son and receiving him as the redemption that God has provided for the human race. Would like to finalize today's study as we scrutinize the one that Jesus said to the Pharisees in John chapter 9, verse 41. If you were blind, you should have not seen. But now you say, we see. Therefore, your sin remains. This scripture, starting from verse 9, points out a predominant aspect about an individual's attitude or perspective as they interact with God, or with Jesus Christ, as pointed out here. It's factual that the world today calls for logic in every step an individual assumes. However, to receive the salvation that God accounts, both for present and eternal needs, individuals have to exercise humility, letting go the much they know as they put their faith in God to receive his redemption as he provides what's best for them. Typically, individuals have to be blind and allow Christ to open their eyes for godly wisdom or for godly transformation. I stand out with the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 18, verse 3, which says, Verily I said unto you, or verily I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Thank you for watching. All, thank you for studying the word with me. Let us interact again in our next Bible study.